Hello, everyone. I'm Colin of WrestleZone.com, joined by John Clark tonight to talk about WWE NXT 2.0. John, how you doing?
Great. How about you?
Doing pretty well. Good episode of NXT 2.0 tonight, coming out of NXT In Your House on Saturday. We did not get a chance to talk about that yet, so at least in a general sense, let's start there. At least with some general thoughts here about NXT In Your House. What did you think about the show on Saturday?
I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was also pretty predictable. I mean, looking back at what we got, I think the titles that did change hands was expected. The only one I know we had talked about a little bit about the women's division there, and of course, we thought maybe at least one of the two would switch hands. That wasn't the case, though.
Yeah. Toxic Attraction stands tall. This is tall on Saturday. They already have at least one major new contender potentially. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the main NXT show tonight. Nesha says it was a decent show on Saturday. I would agree. I thought it was pretty good. Most of the matches were pretty good. As you mentioned, maybe some of the title changes were pretty predictable. Even if we were maybe been expecting one of the women's champions to lose. I thought that the tag title match was really good. Grimes and Hayes was really good. We've been talking about it for weeks now. Not the biggest fan of this whole Joe Gacy thing, so I wasn't really liking that anyway. But I thought it was a perfectly fine main event. I was very pleasantly surprised by the 6-man tag to open the show. I was very impressed by Tony D's Goons, Two Dimes and Stacks. I thought they very much held their own in a big match like that. So kudos to them. Legado was great. Maybe it's not surprising that a major development there that they lost and had to join the family there, and we saw that play out tonight as well. We got some other things here. Mandy Rose defeated Wendy Chu. Not liking the Mandy Chu thing, and I was rewatching the show earlier today. I was like, man, I don't know. It's up there with one of the gimmicks that really just grinds my gears. I'm not feeling it. I know some people are really liking it, but I was very
Tell you
glad to
what,
see
though, that the tag match was really good on over the weekend.
the women's
It was,
tag or
no,
the
no,
men's tag.
the
Men's
men's
tag,
tag. It
yeah,
was kind
yeah.
of a shame to see them drop the title so soon, but man, that it was a great match. The
Yeah.
shooting star press was
Oh,
wild.
that was great. Thankfully, he hit it. That's gonna be a very, very risky move
Oh
if you're not very
gosh.
if you're not very experienced with it. DJ says he thought Roderick Strong may have turned heel and cost the Creed Brothers the titles. I think that was definitely one of the interesting possibilities. We've seen a lot of tension with Diamond Mine here over the past number of weeks here, and it's interesting that Roderick is already a heel, or at least heelish, and the Creed Brothers have definitely become more faces. So I think that was one thing that I was at least kind of looking out for on Saturday of is Roderick going to turn? Because if they lost, he said they would be kicked out of Diamond Mine. So they didn't lose, but we saw more tension after a brief kind of resolution of they were briefly all on the same page on NXT. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I definitely thought that was probably one of the better matches on the show on Saturday. All in all, a pretty solid card. Yeah, I think it was in line with, what was the last time? I guess War Games was the last, Stand Deliver was very good as well. And before that, it was War Games. I would say it was pretty in line with those shows. And for me, at least, when you have a main event that I wasn't really digging in the first place, that does kind of drag it down a little bit. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty good show. And yeah, like John said, pretty predictable overall. But definitely, some major developments are mentioned. The family gaining the new group of Legado, kind of expanding it in that sense. New champions of Camaro winning the title, and with Creed Brothers winning the title as well. So kind of just a bit of a new chapter, new era in a way for NXT coming out of the show here. So that leads us into NXT tonight. Which was, I would say, one of the better shows we've seen lately for NXT 2.0. Don't even really know where to start here, but I guess we'll go with a big thing here because we got a bunch of comments about it already. Apollo Crews back on NXT. Braun Breaker came out to talk about his win over Joe Gacy at In Your House, and he was basically saying who's next. Apollo Crews, he of the main roster, who is very rarely used these days. Came out and said it, and the crowd was very happy to see him. Got a big pop. They were saying, "Welcome back. We missed you." He said he missed it for the fans too. He said NXT is a very special place. He left too soon. Still a lot that he wants to do in NXT. And he said he called Braun Breaker one of the best athletes in WWE, and he said that he would like to make history in NXT, and potentially he would like to see he can envision making history with Braun Breaker at some point. So he told the champion he would see him down the road. Talk about the main event later on, but that was not the last we would see of Apollo Crews. But at least in general, John, thoughts on Apollo Crews returning to NXT here?
Well, I think it's important to note that he dropped the main roster gimmick, the appearance, the accent, all that stuff seemed to be completely changed. So I want to get your opinion on that, but also besides that, just the fact that um, it seems like these main roster people are coming and getting kind of that big pop. Did you think that kind of fit the narrative tonight with his reaction to his entrance?
I mean, you've joked about it before, where like anybody it feels like can show up and get a big pop. I know this was admittedly before my time watching NXT. I know that people really liked Apollo when he was in NXT, and so that's what's made kind of his main roster run pretty disappointing. That like he did have a pretty solid fan backing and still does clearly. I do think there is that dynamic though of like they'll pretty much cheer anybody. Not to say he didn't deserve it, but like some of the people we've seen. I mean, to see AJ Styles come down, it's a big deal. But then some of the other main roster talent come down. Maybe the reaction's a little exaggerated, shall we say? But I was very glad to see Apollo lost his accent. I mean, we've been talking about that for a while now. Robert and I talked about that. What was that? Over a year ago now, when he first took on that accent as part of his new repackaging, and we were hopeful it would lead somewhere. Or at least I was. And briefly it did, but. Not so much.
I'll just say this. The main roster NXT returns have been pretty good recently. Ziggler, who actually won the championship. Natalia was also good. This could be the best yet for everyone. And the reason being is Natalia and Dolph Ziggler weren't necessarily underutilized on the main roster. Apollo Crews has been underused for over a year. He's had no spot on Raw. He's been on main event. He's been with Commander Aziz doing nothing after he had a strong run on SmackDown as Intercontinental Champion. He's going to have the chance to kind of make a new legacy for himself here. It's not exactly clear if and or when he's going to fight Breaker, especially with the main event that we saw. Who knows which direction they're going in? But I think it's important that this is different than Ziggler and Natalia, and that I think Cruz needs to be an NXT regular throughout the summer and into the early fall. I think he would benefit from kind of being there on a full-time basis for 3 or 4 months, and then maybe see what it leads to. Because Cruz was one of those guys that was kind of moved up to the main roster, not ready for it. We've seen that before. I mean, that's what they did with Elias. Didn't really work out that much. It did work out for some, like Alexa Bliss. It worked out for her. It just depends. It's a case by case basis. In my opinion, he needs to spend more than just a short term 1 month feud with Braun Breaker there.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. I think this could be kind of like what we saw Finn Balor's run in NXT. It was very like sustained. It was a real kind of like I think it was there for several months. So like to have a real kind of chance to really work with NXT and be a real featured character in NXT, rather than as you were saying, Ziggler was pretty. That was a little more substantial. He won the title. He was involved with Braun Breaker and feuding there. Natalia, got a couple weeks, but by and large, they especially like AJ Styles was a couple weeks, very kind of passing, fleeting returns to NXT. I think Cruz would definitely benefit from more of a prolonged one. Nesh points out, and I admittedly I have to agree. She says I didn't even realize Apollo had been missing until tonight. I mean, I know he's been competing on main event, but it's been several weeks since he's appeared or competed on Raw. So, and even then, like going ahead, I think that was just one number of weeks ago, and then it's been very sporadic lately. It's not.
And it was against, if I'm not mistaken, he competed against Veer Mahan and got destroyed.
That sounds right. So that goes to show you that he really has been underutilized and dare I say wasted on the main roster, especially lately. Like I said, even if it was a little controversial and I wasn't the biggest fan of it myself, at least when he got repackaged and he had the accent, and he had Commander Aziz, that they were clearly trying.
Don't get me wrong. Somebody has to be on main event. Somebody has to like be in that position. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Cruz seemingly was either never on at all or was only doing that. Like to me, it's basically like because now that Apollo's in NXT, if we have to kind of relate that to somebody on the main roster now, I would have to say like T-Bar. That's what T-Bar has been doing. That kind of role, you know. and he got the short end of the stick himself too because he left and he turned into Retribution, and then he hasn't went back to Dijakovic, who put on classics with Keith Lee before he left. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought this. I've agree with this comment from Eddie here. I've thought this for probably like the duration of the time they've been on the USA Network. Like anytime you have someone not being used on the main roster, he says they should go to NXT. That's what I want to see. You know, there have been times where trying to think of a specific example. There were times where like Ricochet was being, not used at all, and I was like, oh, he could do some good stuff on NXT. And then that's what Steven says in the comment, that if he loses to Gunther, we could still see that. But like there are any number of times you'll have somebody that's not doing anything on the main roster, and it's like, oh, if they go to NXT, they could do X, Y, and Z. There was a time, even briefly, where I was like, there's a time where Kevin Owens wasn't doing much, and I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if Kevin Owens went down to NXT? I think that was I think he did the brief like War Games like return for like one night, but there were times where like even someone as big as that, I think it's a great way to kind of shake it up to add even more, I guess buzz or excitement to NXT. And then it's like this, nobody really saw this coming. It's just like anytime you have an opening for, even though we don't know when it'll be, potentially a new challenger for Breaker. I'll talk about the main event in a minute, but just to add another kind of established player to the roster for however long it may be. And again, we're hoping it's more of a sustained thing. I think that's a very promising thing. Just for the performer, for the show. So I do think it's a win-win. And as points out, the crossovers gets folks watching. I don't know, like, it sounds bad. I don't think like Apollo is gonna like move the needle or anything, but people like to see him. He's talented. He's gonna benefit from being on TV and being used. So I think it's just beneficial for that reason alone.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that crossovers get folks watching. Not just any crossover, may I say. When AJ Styles did it, it worked.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say when Natalia did it, it really worked. I mean, the ratings didn't go up that much. But I wouldn't think here it's going to be much different. I mean, we can assume that maybe at the Great American Bash, there'll be a championship match. Day after July 4th on the 5th. I mean, that might get more viewers, I think.
Yeah, like the special episodes, tend to, people like to check those out. They usually have a more, relatively stacked card for those, so that makes sense. And then you factor in having some crossover as well. I think it may have been like either New Year's Eve or Vengeance Day. They had, I think that was on Riddle. It came down for a little bit as well. So like that was a lineup where like he came down and it was a crossover, so it lined up pretty nicely. But then that show points out there is that appeal of like you never know who could show up. Like again, I said a minute ago, none of us were probably thinking when we started the show tonight, like the start of NXT tonight, Apollo Crews is going to show up because it wasn't announced.
Yeah, and but also, do you also know why? We never see the plans for NXT getting leaked before the show starts, or else that might have been, it's could have. In classic fashion, it would have said something along the lines of Apollo Crews was backstage, and then you would have known. So, I mean, that's kind of the thing about NXT that could be good for some people is you don't get that many leaks because it's like a closed set. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody backstage except the regular people that are just there for the show every week. It's not just 50 to 100 people. It's like 20 to 30. It's the same people every week.
No, that's one of my favorite parts of NXT. Even if I don't always like love the show itself, it's inherently like there's less leaks, there's less spoilers that get out there. There were some things happen, but like with main roster, usually like word gets out somehow. So that any number of surprises kind of get a little given away at least. And so with NXT, yeah, this goes right out of left field. So I was at least kind of happy about that. Brian points out it's different than with Triple H NXT. It's like you're mixing in some of the main roster differently than what happened with Black Gold era. And I don't want to get sidetracked, but I always wish the Black Gold era did that more. And unfortunately, it's never really happened. It did to an extent, where we had like Adam Cole and Pete Dunne on Survivor Series 1 year, whatever it was, and some small things here and there. But it has definitely been more frequent, more regular, more pronounced on this era of NXT. So it's definitely different. I think again, it's very beneficial like that. Last note about Apollo Crews here, at least this aspect of it. Just the fact of him returning in the first place. DJ wonders, Crews coming down. What does that mean for Commander Aziz? Does he go back to being Babatunde? Something else? we never. And he mentions could he possibly get released. I never like to speculate about that. I'm sure that if they find if they think of a plan for him, or he's a big guy, he's got a great size, he's very impressive. So I imagine they would want to try to make something with him. But I don't know, like something like this, it's great for Apollo, but like they were kind of a package deal. So now him being by himself, granted they could easily just pair with someone else and have him be their enforcer, but he is kind of left a bit, in a bit of a lurch here, I guess.
Yeah, in my opinion, he's just going to be on the shelf for now, kind of what they call sitting and catering. I don't think he's going to do much of anything. He might be on main event. He could have probably have a good match with like T-Bar or something. I mean, if they wanted to put him on the main show, they could use him to kind of elevate Omos or even Bobby Lashley if they wanted to. So, but by no, I mean, there's a common pattern here, and everything I'm saying, he's basically losing or making somebody else look better. I don't necessarily see him getting a push or being the guy anytime soon.
Yeah, and not to be negative or anything, just like, and this is already the case. We're not saying that he was on TV and now he's gonna be off. Like he's already been on main event, not really doing much. So I think, especially if unless they could have Apollo do both Raw and slash NXT slash main event, whatever it is, or if he's featured more in NXT now, again, that might not bode very well for Commander Aziz here. But we've been talking about Apollo. We might as well lump it in here because of the show open with Carmelo Hayes talking about his win at In Your House, the new North American champion, bragging about his win, he's happy about it. And then Solo Sikoa comes out and then, of course, says that he has next. He agreed with Cameron Grimes, former champion, that he would be next in line if Grimes retained the title In Your House. Grimes didn't. And Carmelo and Trick Williams very logically said, hey, you made a deal with a former champion. Like that wasn't us. Like your deal's no good here. And he basically said, I'm not afraid of you. They wound up, but Grace Wall interrupted and basically said that he was making fun of Solo. He said you are Solo because you don't have any friends. They beat him down, and then Solo said he wanted a handicap match with the two, just kind of get revenge like that because he is still next in line, at least rightfully so. And later in the show, it was the main event. We were set for a handicap match, but then he said, you know what? I know someone else that wants to fight you guys too. Apollo Crews comes out, so it's a main event tag team match. Solo Crews versus Carmelo Hayes and Grayson Waller. Crews picks up the win here. It's a big win for him in his first night back on NXT. This, however long this run is, whatever it might be, it's off to a winning way here. And I am curious because he did confront Braun Breaker, but he also was involved with the North American title picture here. So it does feel like they kind of planted seeds a little bit for both, at least in the short term.
Well, not even just that. You could take into consideration the tag division as well if you really wanted to, even though that probably won't happen. I saw some people, referring to that possibility. I don't think there's a likelihood that he's going to challenge for that title. I think that's more Solo, and that's probably sooner rather than later as well. It was nice to reintroduce Cruz to fans, though, at the end to kind of get people, he, he was the best guy in the match tonight, and for a reason, because he's the veteran and he's been doing it for a while, and he finally gets a chance to show what he's got. It makes sense, doesn't it? Solo's going to get the match. I don't think Carmelo Hayes is going to drop the title that soon, even though this is his second time with it, which is kind of I guess a negative thing for Solo because Sikoa is going to lose yet another big match, and it's going to slow down his climb up the ranks. And we have made a similar story before in NXT. And I think it was actually Cameron Grimes was the one that we were talking before about how he could just never win the big match. He would always get there and then he would never win. I feel like Solo could be down a similar path, but he's going to have the crowd support regardless, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the crowd loves him. We see that every week here. They just love this guy, the chanting Uso and everything like that. So he's already kind of established in that sense. But you do want to have the guy win some big matches. And I feel like I say this all the time. This was yet another situation where it felt like they kind of booked themselves into a corner where it was like Solo had so much momentum, and then he agreed with Cameron Grimes that he would get a title shot. So in a way, I myself largely expected Cameron Grimes to win In Your House, and then Solo would beat him because he again had all the momentum. And now with Carmelo Hayes winning the title again, as you just mentioned, I don't necessarily see him losing the title like so soon again. So then that would likely mean a loss for Solo because we did see kind of the beginning of a feud between those two guys directly here tonight. So yeah, the crowd support isn't necessarily the problem here because obviously the crowd loves him. It's fine. But I did think him winning the North American title would help him capitalize on that crowd support, keep climbing up the ladder here, and keep on, just rising up here in NXT. If he loses, not to say that he can't, but you do want to have some big kind of milestone wins like that. So looking more forward, and that's just as we could get Solo versus Braun Breaker at some point. Sure, that'd be a very fun match. But they do have to kind of really build him up a little more with some of these big wins here. It's like, I think getting, even if it's a short reign as North American champion, that would be a great way to kind of set him up for that. And then if he loses, I'm not sure where that leaves him. And likewise here, Cameron Grimes wasn't even on the show tonight. We didn't even see Cameron Grimes after he lost his title here. I'm not quite sure where he kind of slots in with all this, or just in general. Steven says if Grimes doesn't get a rematch, he might turn heel, whereas Nessa thought that Grimes might be Solo's partner tonight, and it wasn't. That would have made sense as well. But it didn't see him tonight, so I'm not sure exactly what his future holds here. Because
Grimes is going to be clean shaven and show up to SmackDown this Friday as Max Dupree's first agent / model.
Is that a shoot? Is that your legit prediction?
I think that there's a good likelihood that that's what it is. Yeah, I do.
All right. Clean shaven and are we talking clean shaven or and bald, or is rocking the long hair?
Not the long hair. Maybe still a little bit of a beard / mustache, but just think the history between those two. It would be kind of, a cool moment to circle back to it with the LA Knight and Cameron Grimes thing, the $1 million title. I think it would just be cool.
You bring it up, and I imagine we might see some people actually from NXT, maybe anyone other than Grimes, kind of stand out to you
in the agency.
Yeah.
Immediately, I can't really think of anybody. I was trying to put the pieces together because he made it sound like it was going to be somebody fresh, but then again, we've seen before when this was on Dark, wasn't it Mace? I
think Mansoor at some point, yeah.
Yeah, and they called Mace Face, and Mansoor was still Mansoor. So yeah, I mean, realistically, it'll probably be one of those two. But Cameron Grimes, I think, would be a good decision.
Yeah, I think
his time in NXT, I think, is done. There's nothing really much for him to do.
No, I agree. He's definitely at that stage. I just hadn't even thought of that. I don't know who. I guess I kind of assumed it would be Mace or Mansoor or someone like that. I think it'd be very, very fun to have.
Yes, Laura and the fake country accent would be gone too. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
No, that'd be fun. I definitely like to see that. So we will wait and see what happens with that on SmackDown this week. But that leads us to the first match with Santos Escobar being in the family with Tony D. Here he faced Nathan Frazier. And Nathan Frazier, one of the real promising bright stars here on NXT 2.0. I thought this was a great match. Tony D was on commentary. We had a little pre-match kind of vignette here of the family and Legado, and then Tony was bossing Legado around and giving him orders. Santos very clearly already frustrated with that, formerly being the leader of the stable. Now he's got to fall in line as part of that match stipulation on Saturday. But very good match. Tony was on commentary, and he was telling Santos not to dive over the ropes and stuff like that. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody likes that. It's a fun dynamic there. I was enjoying this, and then the end. It was a great match all in all. And in the end, the family tried to put a crowbar in the ring. Santos didn't want to use it, and that cost him because Nathan capitalized and pinned him for the win. So big win for Nathan Frazier. Very good match either way. And then this already kind of, sets the stage for some clear dissension with the combined family, I guess, because after the match, Tony was yelling at Santos for losing because they tried to help him win.
Well, yeah, this absolutely could have actually been just a pure good wrestling match, but it was clearly more about the storytelling here tonight, introducing some tension, the effect that D'Angelo is having on Escobar, kind of having to be this servant / sidekick. This is going to help Escobar, especially when he does fight back eventually, and like I mentioned a couple weeks ago, probably be the good guy now. I don't know if we've ever seen Escobar as the good guy, even though the crowd was kind of chanting for them the past couple weeks. I wouldn't have categorized them as good guys. So that's and Frazier. I mean, he's been great every week he's been in the ring. He kind of seems like he's been floating around though, kind of like the role Kushida was in for a while, where he's just kind of in random matches, winning some, losing some, but no real path forward.
Yeah, and I think that's unfortunate. And like he's still very new to NXT in general, so I'm not all that concerned. But there's definitely that dynamic we're seeing where it's like there's not a real storyline for him.
And he came from UK too, right?
Yeah.
So let me. Okay, no, go ahead. I was gonna say something, but I'm gonna hold my thought for a minute and think about if I want to say it first.
All right. Question from DJ. We're talking about Legato getting cheers here. He's saying, do we think they're going to turn Legato babyface and have him go after the heels? I mean, yeah, I think that's definitely the point of this. However long it might last. Hopefully not all that long because like this has already been going on for a little bit. I would always rather they end something while it's still good rather than drag it out too long. So maybe if they can, I don't know if Great American Bash is too soon, but I wouldn't. Don't know if I
Well,
want to.
so we saw Frazier. Here's my question is, remember like months ago whenever A-Kid was there and he was supposed to be
Yeah,
like this next big thing, like what happened to that?
he's a DLC character in 2K22, and he had like
And
one
he's been
match.
gone since like the first night. Like that's probably why he had the match.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I
I just
haven't.
the reason I say that is because I don't want Frazier to kind of have the same path, you know,
I've
where he's
noticed
there and
like
then he's gone.
I've noticed more buzz for him. Like people seem to like him, and like people were. I mean, I at least I myself
And his
was.
theme song.
Yeah, great theme song, and like that's to me that's an important part of the package. So that great matches, and again, even if it's not exactly like he's not a featured character and he doesn't have a real storyline yet, he is still kind of he's been on TV. He's putting on these good matches, picking up some wins too. He lost to Cameron Grimes, but still had a very good match. Got out the win here against Santos Escobar, former cruiserweight champion. So I just it feels a little different to me, especially because he has been on a couple times, several times really, and A-Kid I think was maybe twice. I think Eddie says that A-Kid is thinking he went back to NXT UK again. I admittedly I don't catch up. I won't keep up with it all that much. But
Is that Eddie? Is that a he did or is that a question if he did? Because I don't know if he did.
I'm gonna look it up real quick. But I'm enjoying what we're seeing from Nathan Fraser here, and I think he definitely has a bright future. I just okay, no, A-Kid did go back to NXT UK. Oddly
Did
enough.
or didn't?
Did, but his last appearance was, at least according to this, is a taping in April. So don't know what's exactly happening there. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything really reported. So I don't know. If we hear anything, we'll share it. But that is a little weird that they brought him over and then didn't go anywhere. I don't know, but I am hopeful that with Nathan Fraser here, it's better. It's already been an improvement over that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Just to see what he could do. This is a very good win for him. So I'm hopeful that maybe even though this didn't feel like it's not going to get a story right out of this, that maybe soon he'll get a feud to kind of go with these impressive performances.
Well, there was definitely some, I thought good, like you said, it was an overall pretty good show. There were two parts of the show though tonight that I felt like were lackluster. I'll start with the first one, and that was a match between Alba Fire and Tatum Paxley. I mean, if anybody was going to give, a good effort and make a good match here, it was going to be Alba Fire, and she did give a pretty good effort. We need to get on with the Lash Legend thing because that's clearly where we're going here. Like this was just like a bump in the road or to solidify that's what's going to happen. So I'll let you give your thoughts on that, but I want to circle around and say the second part of the show tonight that I thought was not good and was useless, and that was the Von Wagner versus Josh Briggs part of the show. Are Briggs and Jensen on the rise here? Like they've been doing pretty much nothing. I get one has been hurt, but there's been no story progression. Von Wagner, like he's been kind of dominant recently, but he hasn't really done a whole lot himself either to make himself relevant or like useful in any way.
Yeah, I'll start there and I guess circle back to the Alpha Fire one. So I will say like this wasn't useless to me in the sense of like at least well Steven's very happy Von Wagner lost. And then DJ says Von finally met his match with Josh Briggs and his JBL style clothesline. I mean, this did. I don't know. I would have been more upset if Von won because then at that point it's like then like yeah, what are we doing? We're just giving him more wins. Like we've talked about it every week. I'm still not really impressed with him, and I don't really know exactly what they can really do with him. Just again, this guy's been on the show for pretty consistently for a couple months now, so not all that optimistic about his prospects, dare I say. But I thought this was not fun, but a little interesting because Josh Briggs won and he used the cast to do it. The cast from Jensen's Broken Hand or whatever. So it was interesting, and that's the reference to Cowboy Bob Orton back in the day. I think they did this like. It was like in the 80s, a long time ago, but definitely a fun callback there. So I thought that part was kind of fun. This was a big win for Josh Briggs here. I don't know what they're really doing with him either. But yeah, I'm definitely glad that he won and Von Wagner lost. And I guess at the least I will say with this that it keeps the feud going. Like Von Wagner, a lot of his feuds have been like he'll text someone, they'll have a match, he'll win, and that's it. But this is like, okay, the guy won using the cast, and now they keep going. Not that I exactly want to see a rematch, but I don't know. Like I was less offended by this match or less upset with it. A, because Von Wagner lost, admittedly, and B, because I guess it was unexpected here. So I liked it. But for the Out of Fire thing, this really it was a very brief and pretty one-sided match, which is unfortunately I think Tatum Paxton has a lot of talent as well, and maybe we'll see her start to pick up more, at least get a little more time in the ring. As we go on. This was not the time for that, though. Out of Fire, very decisive win. As you said, John, just kind of give her a win and set up the Last Legend thing. Lash came out and rocked her with a big boot and talked some trash. Steven says he's just not digging Last Legend. She is one of the performers that kind of like Von Wagner. I'm not really sold on at this point. Not to say that I can't be, or not to say that not to say she can't come around, but even someone like Tiffany Stratton, I've noticed a lot of progress. I've come around where it's still a very annoying gimmick, but I'm like, hey, at least I can see they've made a lot of progress and they're improving. This not quite that. Nessa says she doesn't like Lash either. I never wanted to completely bash somebody, but I would hope the Alpha Fire would win this. I think they do have something with her. The new name, a little weird, but at least the entrance is cool. They're really they're making something of it. So I guess best case they use this thing with Last Legend to help build up Alpha Fire.
They're obsessed with the weather conditions. They got hail, they got fire, they got rain with Simone Johnson's potential name. And I guess speaking of hail, Pretty Deadly was surprisingly in a match with Andre Chase and Hail tonight in the ring.
Well, she wasn't in the match. Well,
she wasn't she? It was a tag match.
No,
well, she never got in the match, but wasn't she
No, it was going to be a tag team match with Andre Chase and Buddy Hayward, and he was attacked by an unseen assailant backstage.
So didn't it turn into being her?
Well, no. So it became an unofficial handicap match, and then Buddy literally crawled out to the ring, and Thea stopped him. This sidebar: Thea Hale officially got a scholarship to Andre Chase University tonight. I thought that was a lot of fun. So he's officially part of the school here. So Buddy was crawling out. He was beat up. He could not go. And then she stopped him. And okay, I'm admittedly a stickler for the rules. Like, she was not a participant in this match, but she got up on the apron and wanted to get tagged in. And Andre didn't tag her in, but she still punched one of the guys and no DQ for whatever reason. DJ says she's technically in the match because she volunteered. If we really want to get that loose with the rules, all right, but for me, I'm
whether she was or she wasn't, she didn't actually get into the match, and it ended up being that they lost anyway. Either way, Pretty Deadly with a solid rebound here. Andre Chase, he's recently has become a pretty fun babyface to watch. He can light up a crowd when he wants to, but he was never going to do much. This really wasn't even a match for all things considered. The scholarship thing was cool. I just hope they don't turn her into a joke, because it feels like this could go AWOL pretty quickly.
Yeah, I guess, but Buddy Hayward hasn't exactly benefited all that much. He's been on TV, but it's not like he's getting built up as a serious contender or anything. So there definitely is that concern. We had talked about that when she first chose them as her school. That was, I think that was last week. Brian says Thea fits in so perfectly with Chase U. Literally, she literally just graduated high school, and we had the fun segment where she chose Andre Chase University over any number of other power schools to attend. So she's continuing her education literally with Chase University. I think it's fun. It's a little different. I'm liking it. I do think there's that concern. It is more of a comedy thing. But at the very least, for someone like her, literally just came on the show, good way to be featured, and maybe at some point she'll leave the school or graduate or something, who even knows. But I think it's cool. Eddie puts out she's the youngest talent in NXT. She's 18 years old. It's crazy. She has potential. Needs more time in TV, and this is one way to do it. She just came in. She's already on TV. That's pretty darn cool. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I think for now, I think it offers some fun storytelling possibilities, and then maybe however long it is, a couple months, whatever, 1 month, who even knows? Then hopefully more than 1 month. But eventually she can move on, do other things. But this is a good way to kind of introduce her, establish a character, and go from there. Sticking with speaking of newcomers here, DJ points out Roxanne Perez won the women's breakout tournament. She defeated Tiffany Stratton in the finals. This was a very good match. Got a lot of time, at least relatively. Very, very competitive. Both women looked great. I thought it was a very, very good match. There are a couple points where I was really worried Tiffany would win. Like there was a powerbomb at one point that was a very good near fall. There's one point where Tiffany kind of rolled Roxanne up a little bit. I thought they were going to do a little bit of a fluky win. I talk about it every week here. Very, very big fan of Roxanne. Really want her to win tonight, both because I think she's very talented. Again, I'm very biased. I've gotten a chance to interview her. Big fan of hers. Very happy she got the win here. And as I said a minute ago, I've been impressed with Tiffany Stratton lately as well. But to me, this was screaming Roxy needs to win. Build her up. She could be this great big baby face. For NXT and beyond, I think she could just be great. If this NXT run goes well, and then she could do well on the main roster. So she won the breakout tournament. She earned a title shot at her choosing. I'll pause there. Johnny, thoughts on this match and Roxanne winning here?
Well, first I want to say this should have been the main event, and I'm surprised it wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised by the outcome, but now I understood after what they meant by the winner can choose what title they want to go for, because there is the potential that it could be a tag team match with Cora Jade, and I honestly think that might be the way they go, and I don't necessarily agree with it. Regardless, she's the one I think that could dethrone Mandy Rose, and I think she's the one that will. Maybe the previous matches were kind of test runs to kind of see what the chemistry looks like. I also want to give credit to Tiffany Stratton because this was the best that she's ever looked in NXT by far. Miles and miles better than a couple months ago when we were watching her. She didn't know how to talk. She didn't know what she was doing. She's clearly found her way. I don't like the Grayson Waller temporary pairing they do every now and then. That needs to go away. The post-match shenanigans that we saw, I think, kicked off the story of Perez eventually becoming champion. But which one, like I said, remains to be seen. You're the booker, Colin. Which one would you book here?
I mean, I'm very biased. If up to me, I would have her beat Mandy Rose. One comment here from Eddie saying maybe the Great American Bash. I don't know if that's too soon. I feel like it might be.
You think that's what they'll do, though? I said that's what you want, but what do you think they'll do?
Well, I definitely want her to win the title. What do I think they'll do? Ideally, they would draw it out a little bit. Maybe they'll have the tag team match anyway somehow and work out some kind of thing where she and Cora challenge anyway, and then she winds up facing Mandy down the road. Maybe at the one of the summer show, the big summer show. There was rumor they would do a stand deliver kind of thing around SummerSlam potentially, or whatever they wind up doing during the summer, or later in the summer. Maybe doing it there because it would be very soon now. So you said a minute ago, I'm not the biggest fan of the idea of doing the tag title thing. Not the biggest fan of that either, but at least I would rather her get built up a little more. So that would be one way to do that. But yeah, I should mention. So we had directly after this match, Toxic Attraction confronted her. Mandy said that if Roxanne challenges her, she's going to lose. And Steven says that makes him think we're going to see a title change whenever it happens. I would agree with already planting that seed of arrogance and taking Roxanne too lightly. So then Cora Jade celebrated with the Roxanne. She was there, turned into a brawl. Indy Hartwell made the save. So then we will have a 6-woman tag team match next week. We already saw Mandy versus Indy, so I don't know if we're going to get a rematch there necessarily. But definitely liked this one. Definitely like this one for Roxanne, to say the least. But Brian says that he thinks Roxanne might win the title here at the next takeover /
SummerSlam weekend.
Yeah, so I think I could see that. I think that would be enough time. That would be
Especially because we think that they're going to go back on the road and maybe do the show in Nashville where there could be more
Yeah.
fans in a bigger venue. So that might be a good idea. The thing is, though, this isn't like a classic WrestleMania weekend where there's a Raw and a SmackDown in the arena. Like the only show right now scheduled for Nashville is SummerSlam. So they would have to book in either an arena or a convention center and then just do a one-off for NXT, which they very well could. But let's be honest, it's not going to be it's very they would have to probably do it like they did for Stand and Deliver and do it on like noon that day because they're probably not going to compete with Ric Flair's final match the next night, and they're not going to do it on Friday night because that's SmackDown. So they would have to do it Saturday at like 11 or 12 again, which is fine. I mean, I didn't mind it when I was there in Dallas. I mean, it was a little bit of a long day, but you had plenty of time. You had 4 hours to get across the city, and Nashville's completely different from Dallas. So I would go, and I think a lot of people would go. They're already going to be in town for SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, at least at this point, that's the rumor. So, and not confirmed, but if that does happen, I think that would be a great way to have. I think this would be a pretty big moment. I mean, Roxanne already coming
Maybe you
in.
would go then, Colin, because you like her. You want to see her win. Maybe you'd go.
Uh, maybe, but
Probably not.
um, you got me. But no, I think it'll be a fun match if that happens. Nasha says she thinks we'll see. She wants to see Roxanne versus Mandy. She thinks we'll see the tag title thing with Cora. I guess like I'd rather she challenge for the tag titles, lose, and then maybe somehow get built back up to Towns Mandy. I don't know. It's a bit complicated to think how it all could all shake out. Regardless, I definitely want the end result to be Roxanne beating Mandy Rose, and I say that I'm a big fan of Mandy Rose as well. But like this is probably to me right now the best choice to have someone dethrone Mandy again. Being very biased, regardless here. Do want to point out again, we talked about it a minute ago, but don't want to glaze over it. Tiffany Stratton definitely deserves credit here as well. Again, I came to this match like, oh yeah, Roxanne's great, big fan of hers, awesome. And with Tiffany Stratton, I was definitely like just impressed, and not just this week, but the past several weeks, is definitely seeing progress and growth. And again, it was a little rough going early on. She really didn't have any wrestling experience before she signed WWE. She was one of those kind of former athletes, as far as I can recall, that they wanted to kind of mold into a wrestler. She's a part of this new generation. So I think it's going very well, at least in her case. And I think she'll be just fine going forward here because she's doing much better work as a character and in the ring as well. So I think she'll be just fine. I've been saying we talked about the tournament all along. It's not just about winning the tournament. It's like how you do in the tournament, if you can impress, if you can have good performances. So I think that she's definitely checked those boxes off as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what she does in the future as well. Speaking of the future, we know next week we're going to see the debut of the Dryad, Joe Gacy's hooded goons, and he had a promo tonight coming out of his loss at NXT In Your House. He was saying that he didn't really even talk much about his loss. He was like, well, I got you guys. You guys have opened your hearts to me and accepted my message. And we're gonna, he said, now we're gonna focus on you guys. So next week we're gonna see the debut of the Dryad, the hooded guys. Not quite sure exactly who they are. DJ's asking. All along, we've been assuming, or at least predicting, it's Grizzly Young Veterans, and Stephen agreeing there, saying they're just wearing masks. I was rewatching In Your House earlier, and this Gacy, this thing's going off the rails a little bit. Like he did one thing in his match with Breaker where he hung upside down on the turnbuckle that just reminded me so much of Bray Wyatt, and it seems pretty clear that's kind of what they're going for, and it just feels like a very much a knockoff version. And he plays the part very well, but the inherent creative or what they're having him do. Not really working for me at this point. I am interested to see what this could be, though, with the Dryad potentially having a new team here. If it's Girls and Veterans, they're great in the ring, so this could be good for them. So we will see them debut next week, and whatever happens after that remains to be seen. But this is where we're going here, at least in the short term, with Joe Gacy.
It'll be interesting to see if they are revealed to be somebody, or if they're just going to be like new people or unknown or mystery, or it's going to be interesting either way.
Yeah. So we talk about Pretty Deadly here. There's a brief exchange between Tony D'Angelo and Kamaru Hayes where he basically said, you need to kind of fall in line because I'm the Don of NXT. And Kamaru said, or Trick Williams called Kamaru the son of NXT because NXT revolves around him. Kamaru basically, turned Tony D down, and Tony was like, if you're not careful, your title reign is going to come to an end very quickly. So setting the stage at least a little bit for a feud there. I think that'd be a pretty interesting clash of personalities. Two of the real, if not faces of 2.0, two of the main stars in this 2.0 era here of NXT. So, and that's the match we haven't really seen all that much. So I would look forward to seeing that if that does come to pass. But just a little fun kind of teaser of what could eventually happen. With Tony D potentially focusing or really shifting his focus to the tag titles here. The Creed brothers had a backstage segment after they won the tag titles. They're with Roderick Strong, and we mentioned a little bit earlier. Roderick was the first, very happy. He said, "All right, guys, I know I said some things, but you had a great performance on Saturday in your house, and you dominated. It's awesome. One big happy family. They hugged. It was great. And then Idris Enofa and Malik Blade confronted them, won a title shot. The Creed brothers, being fighting champions, gave it to him." And Roderick was like, "Hey, it's not Christmas. You can't just go out, handing out title shots." He was very upset, and he just flipped at the drop of a dime, saying like, "Oh, you guys, you made mistakes. You're lucky to be the champions. You made your one mistake as champions, giving them that title shot." And like he said, like, you got one mistake as champions, and that was it. He stormed off. So more attention here for Roderick Strong and the Diamond Mine.
Yeah, how does this end? We've been saying this for weeks, but we haven't really got a clear answer yet. I thought maybe it would have been the end of it by now, but they're dragging this out. Maybe they don't even know what they're doing yet.
Yeah, I have two comments here from a couple of you viewers. Nezha says Roderick could get a partner and they could beat the Creeds, or maybe on the flip side, or maybe they could exist at the same time. Roderick could cost the Creeds the tag titles and then maybe eventually get a partner, whether it's Damon Kemp. They're already kind of got a little alliance going there. I don't know. I don't really know where this is going. It did seem weird that like everything was kind of copacetic at first, and then Roderick flipped, so that they're still very clearly not on the same page. It does feel like the group is going to implode somehow. I wouldn't think it will be, at least anytime soon, with the Creed brothers losing their titles. I would think that the group is going to implode before that happens, because they're already pretty clearly on thin ice. So if I had to guess, we're already several weeks away from it. Maybe at Great American Bash, we could see the Creeds versus Roderick Strong and Damon Kemp, kind of this like Diamond Mine Civil War kind of thing.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would be interesting too, to get everybody some more time in the ring.
And beyond that, I don't know. We were talking about Roderick Strong.
Ivy Nile.
Ivy Nile as well. She's like the kind of the dark horse of Diamond Mine in a lot of ways. Like we haven't seen her in the ring all that much, and when we do, it's pretty inconsistent here. So I don't know. I'd be curious to see how the chips would fall. Like if it would be just the Creed brothers break out on their own, or if it becomes they entirely break up. I'm not quite sure, but it's interesting. I'm curious to see what happens. I hope that we get a match out of it, whether that's Roderick and Dame Kemp, someone else. But at least for next week, Brian says the Creeds versus Idris and Malik Blade's going to rock. Going to be a good match. I don't know, but we're not talking about the main roster earlier. Anyway, a really fun suggestion. You could have Alpha Academy come down to NXT and face the Creed brothers. That would be a very fun match. I'd like to see that potentially. Even if that's like one of those kind of one-offs for the main roster, that'd be a really fun match for Great American Bash. I think, purely speculating, but I think that'd be pretty fun. Yeah, I think the Creed brothers definitely seem pretty secure as champions. That they took so long to win them in the first place, and they're going to be champions for a while. So I think it'll be a good match. Definitely not one of those things that we can. I'm not expecting an upset loss for them next week or anything. They just won the titles. They're going to be fine. Now, as I saw, Ivy Nile was just on NXT UK. They've had a bunch of NXT UK, NXT Prime talent going to NXT UK at the last tapings. It was like Wagner, Last Legend, Ivy Nile as well. And I think that's good for them to mix it up with fresh talent and get more experience. So it's a win-win in that case. So maybe that was why that we haven't seen her quite as much lately. Now she was back here tonight, so maybe we'll see her a little more going forward. We're talking about a bunch of newcomers to NXT here, and one of them we can officially confirm now because we saw it tonight in another vignette. Giovanni Vinci is officially the former Fabian Eichner of Imperium. He'll be debuting next week. DJ doesn't look like the former Imperium member at all, but it's him. It's him. I saw the face. I was like, that's him. It's Fabian Eichner.
Yeah, that's definitely him.
So I think I'm excited for that. I think I enjoyed Imperium a lot. I've pretty much every time they're on TV, we're on the show. I was like, hey, Imperium is great. Big fan of those guys in the ring. I always wished for more for them. I thought the stable could have had a much better run than they did. Admittedly, travel restrictions, everything, and a number of other obstacles. Got in their way. But I am excited here. We know that Gunther and Marcel Barthel, now known as Ludwig Kaiser on SmackDown. Fabian's still down in NXT. So he'll be re-debuting next week as Giovanni Vinci. You know, this character, it's all about like fashion and style. And like, you know, I think I said it last week, but like, it reminds me of those commercials, like the most interesting man in the world, where he's got the fancy cars, he's got the clothes and everything. I'm curious to see how he plays the character. Eddie wonders, do we think we'll have like an Italian accent like Tony D'Angelo? The problem was, I think they have been in Italian. I think he actually is Italian himself. So I think that would make a lot of sense. So I don't know. Maybe. Hopefully it's not a fake one. I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely possible that could be the plan, but I think we just have to wait and find out because they have been unpredictable in their characters recently.
Yeah, but I mean, the vignettes have helped type up the character. I'm curious to see what they do with it. He already screams like potential member of Maxi Pri's male models. This guy that's, you know, I don't know, is a handsome guy. He's got the fancy clothes and everything. Like there's a pretty clear link there. So even though I would hope they take some time to build him up first, maybe if all goes well with Max Dupree, they could do that a little bit down the road. But no, otherwise there's really not much to say about that because this has just been a bunch of vignettes and stuff like that. Otherwise here, looking at everything else, we had one brief segment. Wendy Chu, ever the prankster, threw a drink at Tiffany Stratton. So I feel like we'll probably get a match, if not a feud there. But otherwise, I think that's about it. So John, okay, we had a promo with Zion Quinn. He'll face Wesley again next week, trying to settle the score. They've tied 1-1. So he made it clear he thinks Wesley got lucky. He wants to get his win back next week. We'll see if that happens. But otherwise, here, John, pretty eventful episode of NXT 2.0. I thought it was a pretty good show, all things considered. What did you think about NXT tonight coming out of In Your House?
Give it an average 7. Thought it was pretty good. Could have been a little better. They are making commitments to develop new stories and continue existing ones. And the twist of Apollo Crews was an unexpected surprise that was pleasant.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun surprise, and I especially fun because he competed in the main event. Like, it wasn't just like a promo that we actually got to see him in the ring, showing everybody what he could do. Because he's very, very talented. So I was happy to see that because he has not gotten to do all that much on the main roster lately. Stephen agrees with a 7. Ness with a 7.5. I would go with like a 7.2. I would say like that was definitely above average. I enjoyed it more than usual. Fun Apollo thing, fun kind of coming out of In Your House. You're seeing where the chips fell. Brown 7.2 as well. DJ with an 8.75 and prediction that Cora Jade will cost Roxanne her title shot whenever it happens. I hope not. They're actually like really close friends, so hopefully they can just, you know, have the ability to actually be friends. And because sometimes like with a New Day, it's okay to just be friends. So hopefully they don't feel the need to automatically too quickly split them up like that. Because even if I'm not the biggest fan of Cora Jade or anything, or the pairing of the two, you know, maybe down the road, but for now, I think it's good to have them just be friends and leave it at that. Kevin with an 8, though, so it seems like we're all in relative agreement that it was definitely an above-average show coming out of In Your House here. So that's good. It's good when NXT is good. For me, part of that as well is that SmackDown has been pretty weak lately. So there's inherently like there's a dynamic where I'm more hopeful, I guess, that the NXT will be good, and then I'm more lenient when it's better than I expect. So that's what we got tonight. It was a pretty good show. And that takes us to, as always, the grind never stops. We're on the next one here. Johnny, you and I are here Monday nights to talk about Monday Night Raw. We're here on Tuesdays, obviously, talk about NXT 2.0. The two Dynamite dudes on our page, Marcus and Dominic, cover all things AEW. Schedule permitting, at least, Robert and I are here on Fridays to talk about Friday Night SmackDown. Otherwise, we have a lot of interviews constantly coming to you guys. This this week it's NWA week. Out of NWA Always Ready, we've got a bunch of NWA interviews already coming out and a bunch of art still lined up to go. Bill Pritchard recently interviewed Ric Flair as well. Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, the Hall of Famer. Make sure to check that one out as well. Lots of great stuff. All in the archives, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, all the Apple Podcasts, all the good stuff and more. You know where to find it. So with that being said, the outside world is a scary place, but John, we put that aside because we come here together. We come here together to just enjoy the wild, whack world of wrestling. I gave it away, but John, we do one thing here at WrestleZone above all others. And can you tell me what that is?
Enjoy the show.
Indeed. Thanks for listening.